Hello and welcome to another episode of the Juan Podcast. I'm your host Juan. On this episode, we are joined by Luke Williamson. Once again, people, we're going to talk about one of my favorite things. You're probably going to get tired of hearing about it on the show, but I don't care because it's my podcast. We're going to talk about ancient civilizations today. We're going to be talking in specific ideas surrounding the ancient astronaut hypothesis. One of my favorite things to talk about, because what if we are descendants of this alien race, right? Of the Anunnaki, of these people, the Nomos, the ones that came from space and taught us all these different things and had this crazy technology. We're going to be talking about that today. We're going to go deep on that. We're going to be talking about odd findings at ancient sites, their possible purposes, maybe depictions of ET visitations throughout South America. We're going to talk about the movie Prometheus, the Alien franchise, all that stuff. We talk about religion. We talk about the singularity. This episode is jam-packed with some good stuff, and I love it. I love all of it. So, without further ado, this is Ascended Masters, Stargates, and Ancient Religions with Luke Williamson. So what we'll do,
supposedly
Luke,
still
is
in contact with them.
we'll transition and we'll talk about
South America.
South America. Now you've got my attention. What the hell are you talking about?
But if you look at the indigenous histories there, I mean, there's lots of contact with the Sky Brothers, and they still refer to them as the Sky Brothers. They're not, for them, the indigenous people, at least Peru and Bolivia, this is not a big deal at all. They know they exist. They know they're doing what they're doing. They're not really concerned about it. It's just kind of a natural way of life. But you get into the Puma Punku thing. Apparently, I mean, the Inca, because the Inca didn't know who built that stuff. The Inca, their mythology is that like Tiwanaku, Puma Punku is where the universe was created, or the Earth was created. Like
That's a very fascinating place. Have you been there?
Yes, and yeah, and the Aymara talk about that was the place that was built in one night. And if you ask them who built it, it was the gods. And I have asked Aymara indigenous people, and how old is this site? Because for us, they tell us radiocarbon dating, which is not particularly accurate, but they say 1100, 1300, all in this area was when this stuff was done. But if you ask the Aymara how old that is, they say it's about 14,000 years old. And if you look at Puma Punku, the level of destruction there, what happened at that site, because nothing at that site is in its original place. All these blocks and pieces fit together, like interlocking 3D, puzzles. And this is so destroyed and spread out all over the place. This isn't a human force that did this. This is like massive force of nature. But you're at 14,000 feet. So you're looking at either some kind of tidal wave madness, or you're looking at a glacier that like rolled through there and just destroyed everything, moved it, and then dropped it again, or moved part of it. Of course, there are still some foundations there, so that
You're talking about Puma Punku, right?
Yeah, well, Puma Punku, Tiwanaku. I mean, you could hit a baseball from Puma Punku and land it in Tiwanaku.
Okay.
They're very close together.
That's another place where they said that there's another Stargate. Interesting enough.
Yeah, well, what's interesting too is that if you look into the megalithic jigsaw style walls, if you get into that, you will start noticing that the word cyclopean is tossed around a lot.
What does that mean?
As in of the Cyclops. And
really?
That actually comes from Greece, because there are old structures in Greece that like the Romans were like, dude, who the fuck built this? Like near the Mycenae Gate and stuff. Like there's all that polygonal cellular type of stuff that usually you see in Peru or Egypt. And it's, around just a couple of places in ancient Greece. And, the Romans were like, who built this? And the Greeks didn't know, because they'd inherited it and built around it and used it, incorporated into their works. And they told the Romans that the Cyclops had built that because they were much bigger and stronger and they knew how to do that stuff. So
what part of the world are you in right now, Luke?
That's Greece. That's Greece. So I'm in California, but
No, I'm talking about like where you're talking about, because we're jumping around. I'm just trying to keep up.
I know, but I'll tell you why in a second. What's interesting about that Cyclopean thing is I was at Pumapunku and Tiwanaku, and there's a pyramid there at on the back side of Tiwanaku that's mostly buried.
Really?
Yeah, but you can see the corner foundations they've dug down at one part. The rest of it looks kind of like a natural hill, or they've cut into it. But like once you go around the back, you can see down into the actual structure a little bit. And
I see it here. Yeah, the buried pyramid.
yeah, so I was talking to our Aymara guide Ross Marie, and I asked her, like, is the inside of the pyramid accessible? Do people go in there? Have they explored it? The usual questions. And she said it was open very briefly, and they closed it again immediately. And
Insert
nobody
X-Files music.
Yeah, and nobody really goes in there anymore. But she didn't really want to talk about it. And then
The Akapana pyramid, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, and then I finally got her talking a bit, and she introduced me to another author up there. And so part of the belief is that they have there the ascended masters, as they refer to them. They said they closed the pyramid because the bodies of the ascended masters are in there. They're in stasis. They're not awake. But these people are Cyclops, apparently.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah, this is one of the things I was told, and I just found that interesting because you have inexplicable structures, or structures that are hard to explain, separated by oceans and many thousands of miles, and the indigenous people's explanation for both of them is that the Cyclops built them. And I found that interesting, just on a level of I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, and for those that don't know who the Ascended Masters are, they are the extraterrestrial teachers of of who they call. I mean, think about Ascended Masters. I mean, that's fascinating. I didn't know about that. That's dope.
There's definitely the indigenous people are a lot more open-minded to this kind of stuff, and they have their own legends and mythology, and whether they'll share it with you, I don't know, because we don't respect it very much. We do this indigenous people everywhere. I'm sure Brian mentioned this, Brian Forster, because I know it bugs him too. We come into places, we ignore what the indigenous people say is their history. We're like, well, that's funny, or interesting, or stupid. Their shit up, and then we make up stories about what happened that totally ignores history, and we do that a lot.
You're breaking up, Luke.
How are we now?
Yeah, you're good now. So you said they call them the Cyclops people?
The Ascended Masters, supposedly there in Peru, are supposedly Cyclops.
Huh.
But there's a guy, I'm trying to remember his name. He's an author, and I'll have to.
It's like that one story you told me about where you had that one guy who never told you the purpose for what was that place?
Yeah, Aberwash inside Ilarian.
Man, can we find that guy again? And
oh, I know where he is. I actually blocked him on most media because I got tired of the constant tease of stuff that he wants to share but then won't actually share. I can't deal with it.
I want to know now, Luke. I want to know, and it's like this, like stuff like this.
I don't. The thing is, I don't believe that guy. I think that guy, thinks he can get away with. He knows his stuff, but he thinks
how
he can
much
get away
do
with
you
telling.
believe in the Ascended Masters being in that pyramid? Why? It's like, again, we have this. Even the government there, right? And Pumapunku doesn't want to keep burying. Oh no, we've buried enough, and then they show seismic. They do whatever topography that they use or lidar, whatever it is, to show in the underground, and they show more tunnels and caverns and all this stuff, and they're like, no, we've dug enough. We've dug enough.
Yeah, I never I've never understood this sort of theory of we we know enough. We don't need to dig anymore. But
And they're moving things around there too as well, always, right? They're moving like stones around and standing things up.
they do move stuff around, yeah. And it's interesting because we don't know the original layout. What I will tell you is that a lot of the stones at Pumapunku, if you look at modern machinery foundations or bases that are made like in concrete to house massive machines, um, looks a lot like some of the blocks at Pumapunku.
Well, who's the one? What's his name? Daniken or Daniken? How do you say his last name?
Yeah, Eric von Daniken.
Yeah. I was watching a video, I think it was today, about ancient. Because again,
Did
I
you
mean,
say it was a landing pad for? It's a landing pad. Is that what
yeah, because
got
you
it?
have the Maba. Man, my brain is fried right now. Mahabharata, where they have like this epic fight, and they talk about this ancient advanced technology and how all the pyramids and then this supports your theory, in South America, in India, that they're like all their pyramids are more like tower shaped and they're flat on the top,
Yeah.
and it's
And they
like,
have gateways at the top. A lot of
and
them
they
do. The
have
ones in
gate
Asia, and the
what?
ones in Asia, a lot of the Cambodian ones have fucking gateway after gateway at the top, like they're expecting like people coming from multiple directions. It's crazy.
That's weird, right? Like it's like how I don't know, Luke. I don't know. I did an episode on with these other guys from these other podcasts on have you know what obviously you know what a UFO religion is. And I did this episode on Ashtar Command. Have you heard about that?
No.
So Ashtar Command is they pretty much believe they're Christian. I mean, they believe in if you would call it Christian. Jesus Sananda, which is Jesus Christ. And have you seen the movie Prometheus?
Yes.
Well, so interesting thing here. I don't know if you've looked really into that. At the part where the architect is talking to David at the end of it. And
Right.
now that I think of it, it's almost biblical because the architect is way bigger than David, and it's like David and Goliath and like the
Right.
Nephilim. I just made that connection just now. And if you look at the script for the movie, they didn't put the subtitles or the translation of what the architect said to David, right? And if
Right.
you look at the script, in the script, the architect is telling David that he's obviously they're communicating back and forth, and they're like, "Hey, what did you do? How what? I forgot. I have to look back at it." But like he said, like, "What did you do?" And then he talks about he's like, "Listen, we try to save your race. We try to save your humanity, but we sent you Jesus." And you guys killed him. So once you guys killed him, that was it for us with you. We just abandoned you because you guys are like a pretty much a barbaric and animalistic,
Right.
society. And that's when he rips his head off, and the rest is history. But they didn't translate that, and I know the reason why they didn't translate it
Yeah.
because obviously it would
Yeah.
trigger a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what if, what if that is the like if we did come from an alien civilization? I like that idea. I
One of
really
the
do.
things I liked about that movie was, just the reference, like the pointing at the stars in the sky, like this is
Hmm.
where we came from, kind of thing. Because, and
Like the
they
Dogon,
did
right?
they did that because that's what some of us are doing. We're looking, and again, the Egyptians did it, but really in South America, especially like if you go to Chavin Temple, there's this rock out in front of the
Is that South America?
yeah, out in front of the temple. And I remember looking at it, it looked like a bit of a puma paw, like with the pads of the puma print. And I know how big they are on that jungle iconography up there, the serpent, the puma, or the jaguar, and the condor, etc. And so that's kind of what I assumed it was. I need to make a video on Chavin Temple. Anyway,
Is
later
that
as
Shavin de Huantar? Is that the one they talk about?
yeah, yeah. And later I was talking to a Wachimero shaman who knew an awful amount about the Chibian culture. And I asked him about that, and I'm like, "Tell me about, is that a puma, Paul? Like, what is that?" He goes, "No, no, no." He goes, "That's the seven sisters. That's the Pleiades." And that
Wow.
those ancient cultures there had a very strong connection, like the Egyptians with us, Orion, but they also, the Pleiades is really important too, more so
Mm-hmm.
in South America.
And in Sumeria too,
Yeah.
there's ancient Mesopotamia. There's also depictions of what people say are, the Elohim, which is the seven planets that we can see, but there is depictions of what looks like that, the seven stars, and then one really big one in the center, and some related to the Pleiades. But it's interesting, right? How
There's a lot of reference to these places and either beings or knowledge from those places, and there's a lot of sacred places that revolve or have a doorway uh, set into stone that we take to be symbolic. But sometimes I look at those things and I'm like, if you plugged something into that, if you treated that as a socket for something, could you plug something into that opened a gateway? I think about that stuff. Or is there a sound? There's a really interesting thing you find in Egypt a lot, especially in uh, the temples of Hathor and at Dendera, where Hathor, the goddess Hathor, has she almost always has on her head a gateway, and on top of that, in that gateway is usually four directions. So there's four gateways on top of her head. A lot of times there's a person in the gateway, and then on either side of the gateway there is what looks like a very delicate figure nine, or like a bass clef sound. And I asked Yusuf about that, and he says this is a symbol for sound. And I see this symbol for sound on either side of the gateway, and they actually made for Hathor has a specific type of what they say is a sistrum. Now, a sistrum is like a stick with a metal thing that rattles in it, and it makes a weird kind of rattling sound. But those have a different design. But there's a special Hathor design with the gates on the top of it with that sound thing on either side, and they say it's a sistrum. But for me, I keep coming back to this and looking at the gateway and seeing like the symbol for sound on either side of the gateway, and it just
where is
makes me
that you're
wonder.
seeing that, Luke?
Well, this has to do with Hathor, the Neter Hathor, but like her temple, Hathor's temple at Dendera,
Is
down
that
in the.
South America or?
No, that's Egypt. So like if you go down into the crypt at Dendera, which has like what they call the light bulbs, the Dendera light bulbs,
Mm-hmm.
literally like 3 feet to the right of that are, I mean, and they're everywhere. They're not just there, but literally 3 feet to the right of that is a four gateways next to each other that are probably each four gateways apiece. Some of them have figures either kneeling or standing in the actual gateway. It's like on top of the head of Hathor, and it has like
What the fuck? Yeah, this is
these.
wild.
It has like these dots that are connecting it from like this thing, and they say, "Oh, this is supposed to be incense." Coming. This is supposed to be a sistrum, and there's incense coming from this that goes onto the. It doesn't make their explanation for it makes no sense, and so I look at that, and again, it's like another thing that has to do. Another thing you find there in that temple too are just gates with a number of stars inside the gate or like right over the gate. And
Where is it, like Abydos, where you have the UFO and all that stuff? Is that where that's at?
no, that's actually, well, it is. It's a Seti I temple, which is above Abydos, yeah, above the Assyrian
Oh, it's
temple. But
there as well?
yeah, but well, that's where they have what they call like the helicopter
Yeah.
and the tank and whatever. But that is pareidolia. That is not intended at all. And if you know enough about hieroglyphs, what you're seeing there is um, older
Luke,
sets
come
of
on.
higher. No. What you're seeing there is older sets of hieroglyphs that have been written over, and the old ones have been filled in, and then that filling has come out, and you can
I've heard that.
if you superimpose those two sets of existing hieroglyphs on top of each other, you get that exact design. Those, like the Egyptians, there wasn't somebody
Well,
like
what are the chances, Luke?
getting better all the time, I'd say. I know that's not, there wasn't a guy like, tapping into a temple wall having, like a vision of a tank or a helicopter in the future.
Yeah,
I
but it's
don't.
just like the chances of that happen. I mean, okay, so to reinforce what you're saying, okay, maybe, for example, these Dendara light bulbs, right?
Yeah.
The Enigma at Dendara. The the so is there more depictions of this anywhere else? Because if they didn't depict this anywhere
There
else,
are more at Dendera,
so only
because
there.
well, what you've got is the one that everybody sees, and then directly opposite that, in that same chamber, there's another situation with one that has like an
The upright
individual
ones,
behind
yeah,
it with
yeah,
two knives in the
yeah.
hand and like a so that one is behind it. And then upstairs in Seti Temple, there are a couple of rooms that high up on the walls also have that light bulb design. But if you look closely at that light bulb design, what you'll see is that it's and I cannot explain how it appears to be plugged in and that stuff. But what I will say is that the base of what you call the light bulb is a lotus, and it's a lotus stalk that
Yeah.
comes off of that. And then what you have inside is the serpent emerging from the lotus into this new space. And I think what we're looking at is not necessarily a light bulb, but it is a depiction of the creation of a universe or a dimension. Like that is what's actually happening, is out of, because in India it's the same thing. Everything, like first there was the primordial ocean, and it's interesting that you have this in India and you have this in Egypt. There's what they call the primordial ocean of Nun in Egypt, and that was what existed, the primordial ocean. And then the lotus comes out of that, and then the serpent comes out of that, and then life and all this stuff. And I think what that is it's a depiction of net creating another dimension, or a universe. I think that's really, I don't think it's a light bulb. I think what you're seeing there are
Look, so
entities
you just
creating
took my
a universe.
idea and just fucking blew it up into like this other crazier idea. So the idea of that depiction over there, Abydos being what it looks like, and then you just fucking told me about them creating another portal, another dimension.
Yeah, another universe maybe. I mean, we see this kind of stuff in me. What was that movie? Was it like an Ant-Man movie or something, where there's a really small, um, there's another dimension, or there's an entire universe or something that's really small, and like a dog swallows it or something, like. Or I don't remember. I saw some movie in foggy. I don't remember what.
Yeah, I don't remember. I
But
just know it.
this is could there be, I very often think that our entire universe could just be like the contents of some larger being's stomach on its way through the intestinal tract. Like it
We're
could be any of those things.
we're probably an atom
Mhm.
in another person's universe, and atoms are just
Our entire universe could be like one cell in a whole other universe.
because who is it that talks about that? Oh yeah, Terrence McKenna talks about that, how we're just this big organism, right?
Yeah.
And that's crazy though. I didn't know about those bulbs. That is very weird. And you said that you can find that in India, but India is older than Egypt, right?
I yes, I believe that India is the closest connection that we have to our origin. And you were talking about the Mahabharata earlier, and I don't know if you
Yeah.
know this. I'll have to, because I don't know the name of it offhand, but I have it on my Kindle, which is broken at the moment, so I've got to, like, I can't read all my fucking ebooks. But an Indian scholar wrote a book. What he did was he took the Mahabharata and he took all the astronomical information that's in that, like the positioning of the stars in the skies and events that happened geologically, et cetera, et cetera. And he went back and matched that with actual, like the night skies in our history, going all the way back, using precession to date what was where, and then geological events to the best of our knowledge, etc. And he says the Mahabharata is like 6,000 or 7,000 years older than where we put it today,
Wow.
judging by what they're describing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
But the stuff in that book is wild, right? What's that one city? I believe it's in Mexico that's very big, and they also talk about, it's all just what looks like platforms.
What, Teotihuacan?
I think yeah,
Yeah,
Teotihuacan.
you got the pyramid of the sun and the moon and all that stuff.
Yes, yes.
Again,
Have
do you
you
know
been
who,
there?
do you know I was supposed to go there in May. I need to get
Thanks,
some.
Shout out COVID-19.
Yeah, yeah. But I will get there. Um, knock on wood. But do you know who built those?
I do not know. Please
Yeah.
enlighten me.
Neither does anybody else. The
Oh.
Aztecs didn't know. The Aztecs didn't know who built them. We've gone in there. We like carbon dated stuff, and they're like, oh, it was probably around, seven. I don't even remember what but they say it's like not that long ago. 2,000-3,000 years, something. But they're using that thing has been built over so many times by the Aztecs and whatnot as well. But we treat carbon 14 like it's been, like it's a steady level exposure to the, like how it forms is steady, and it's not. And all our numbers are, I think a lot of our numbers are off because of
It's
the
very big too,
variation.
right?
Yeah, the variation caused by both natural processes and like human reactivity, and it causes irregularities. And then it just throws everything off. And I know they're coming up with, well, we're calibrating, so and then of course it's they think it's accurate to about 62,000 years or something, but
Yeah, but
if you get
those
something
are
that's outside of that, I don't know.
those
It's
are
all a bit
just
crazy.
guesstimates, right? Like that's what blows my mind about space and stuff, that they're guessing. They're guessing, and whatever they say is what. That's like when you admit to murder, right? And you can't take back what you said. Like, so once they put something out there, like that's what it is. They can't really change it. Can you go inside this pyramid? The
I don't
Pyramid
I
of the
don't
Sun?
think I don't think they have, not at Teotihuacan. There are some that have uh, tunnels that you can go into a little bit at least, but I think they've got this stuff uh, closed down. They just found a new tunnel not too long ago underneath there. They're still finding stuff, mercury, mica. They're finding all kinds of crazy stuff. And obviously this was used by later cultures, but it's just another example of reuse. The Aztecs didn't know who built this. I have a feeling this is one of these things that's partially left over from, at least,
Another mystery
another 10 or
civilization.
12,000 years. Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to get at again? Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniken is one of the other ones that talks about how they launch spaceships from here.
Well, a lot of these, they have platforms at the top. So this Egyptologist who was telling me, the stories about, Thoth and the followers from across the sea, and, somebody stabbing himself in the back 6 times after telling the truth about Abu Ruwash and all this stuff. This guy was telling me that, that basalt floor that's left over from one of the temples outside the Great Pyramid. He's like, this is called the landing zone. And he started getting, really excited and intimating that this
In
was,
Egypt?
yeah, right outside the Great Pyramid. And it's a very interesting basalt floor. It's got some really interesting tool marks in it that were definitely like machine tool marks. And it's an incredible floor. And so anyway, he's telling me it's referred to as the landing zone, which apparently it is. And he's making all these references to how this is suggesting that it's aliens and whatnot. And I'm like, yeah, but didn't the river come up to like right there? He's like, yeah. Like, so then they would need somewhere for the boats. Like, I mean, I'm just, maybe it was a landing zone. Maybe it wasn't necessarily for, like, I honestly, I like Mulder, I want to believe. I just don't, I haven't seen any evidence that they've built stuff for us or left it behind, but I'm not opposed to the idea that they've interfered with us either by engineering or sharing knowledge. I mean, that whole story of the Dogon and how, because it's very interesting, that they came down, they selected 8 people from the tribe, and they took them and taught them agriculture and basic science and like how to communicate and encode this and pass the knowledge on, and they just kick-started civilization again. I'm much more because of their knowledge of like the Sirius system and things that we couldn't see with the naked eye, that they not only knew were there,
crazy. 50 years before,
but had like the astronomical chart. I mean, absolutely to the millimeter.
50
Perfect.
years before it was discovered. Things that you can't see, and they knew the density, they knew the location. That's what blows my mind. That's why I like the ancient alien, the ancient astronaut, right? The ancient astronaut theory or hypothesis, whatever, because again, that's why, Luke, that's why I ask you, how much of it all is physical or metaphysical, right? What if, man, that's why, what if maybe they prayed or something and this was revealed to them in a dream, like how you had a dream, with the stargates? How much of it do you think was that? Or how much do you think it was that they were doing, somebody the other day, I was doing a podcast on another show, and I was like, he's like, well, I don't know if back then, I think we were talking about so the Ashtar Command, we were talking about that, about how they say Jesus is an alien, right?
Right.
And he was sent down here. And then how they had an experience where they went up into light ships, and it's like this whole galactic confederation of ships and like this fleet, right? And they don't say it's a physical thing. They say it's a spiritual thing. And I go, well, maybe they were using psychedelics. And the guy on the podcast was like, well, I don't think they used psychedelics back then. And I was like, well, psychedelics have been around for thousands and thousands of years. So
it was the original cable.
So how much of it was maybe they were having psychedelic experiences and meeting these entities or something? But then what are those entities, right? Because obviously you've done a lot of psychedelic, you've had a lot of experiences with, on DMT, especially 5-MeO, shrooms, where you have these.
The 5-MeO is not an entity. It's the NN-DMT that's the entity, DMT.
Which is the toad is 5-MeO, no?
Yeah.
Do you don't see entities in that on that one?
No, because there's only one entity, and it's you.
So NN-DMT.
And it's also not you.
Wow. See, so what if? How do you feel about the whole Akashic records?
Oh, I absolutely. Cause things don't work like, we're so physical, we're so human, we're never going to understand because this is the only perspective that we have, and we can't let go of it. And I believe that all that information is accessible somehow.
To the universe, the information of the universe.
And we do it a lot automatically. We call it instinct, or a hunch, or a feeling, or deja vu, or a sixth sense, or whatever. But we access that stuff all the time without knowing it.
Because I've told you about the theory I was doing it, because I've learned so much from just doing my podcast alone. Even with you, like right now, you talk to me about these different places. I look them up, and there's some things that I'm still learning today. And
I had the same experience.
The gene, the X gene, I think we talked about it, the haplogroup gene X, where it traces back to, crazy places around the world. And like how I told you about the Mayans, we're talking about South America. The Mayans, what if they were able to tap into this other thing as a whole society, as a people, and take off and leave?
I think, it's something like that is possible, I would imagine. I think everything, really could be possible on some level. But I think that what they were definitely doing was figuring out, because they're still doing it. I've been there, I've done it. They still have an interface with what they see as the spirit world, but is really, the entity world, because all these spirits are not necessarily from this dimension. And that NNDMT experience I had, where I was suddenly in the Amazon and looking at the pyramids that had faces on them that I'd never seen before, that I later saw like in real life, and like having that coupled with the understanding just slamming down on top of me, like a piece just being slotted into place irrevocably, that this is what they were doing there. They had come through, they had made this connection through their plant ingestion with these entities from this other place, and they were either emulating them by building what they were seeing in these other places, which is what I was seeing in those other places, or they had been instructed to build those things here. And that's where I started to get into that thing like I was talking to you about, is do these things exist in the same spot in multiple dimensions? Do they function well in one dimension and not in another? Is it like full raging power in the next dimension over, and this one it's a ruin? How does this, I don't know how this works. It's possible that this works every way.
Well, it's like to touch on that, it's like what you had said about when you were doing DMT or ayahuasca in certain parts of the world, you were seeing things of that civilization, right?
Yeah.
And
the plants seem to communicate
it's
with
like
who they
it's
think
like
they've been
mycelium.
communicating with.
It's like mycelium, right? So fungi communicates with one another by mycelium, and other plants talk to each other by this network of mycelium. And that's so fascinating, because what if, how string theory says everything's connected? What if that is something like that, right, Luke? Like, and man, I don't know. And I wanted to talk to you about about we talked about the Mayans, right? I mentioned the Mayans. I'm seeing this article right now. Laser finds thousands of lost Mayan structures.
Oh yeah.
And it says researchers using laser scanning technology have uncovered 60,000 previously unknown Mayan structures in Guatemala. It's like right now they're finding all these structures in the Amazon rainforest.
They're going to look, they bulldoze them from time to time. There's one in Belize that was in the way of where they wanted to build a road, and they just ignored everybody and fucking bulldozed it. But when I was in Belize, 15 years ago, there are ruins there everybody knows about. They're just covered. They just haven't been excavated. There are piles of flint arrowheads, like 4 feet high, just sitting in the jungle, like where they were being made, like at that time.
Wow.
It's amazing the stuff that is waiting, and you can imagine all the way down in the Amazon. There's going to be stuff out there that is so old, like from before that was a jungle, that we're going to find, that's sitting underneath that. There's older stuff under Angkor Wat that we've seen in Asia, now that we're starting to use LiDAR and stuff. A lot of these sites, because this is what happens with the really important sites. They're energetic and they're important, and every successive generation or version of humans recognizes this in some way, and they use that site because of that, and it becomes like a ritual or a gathering site that's of great importance to the community. And different communities will take it over from other communities, and when they do, they'll build their structure there. It's the same thing. It's like when you go to Jerusalem, there's at some point there was just a spot in the desert that had energy and was important, and then that became something which became a temple, and then somebody conquered it and it became a mosque, and then somebody built a church, and this is what the Catholics did all through South America. All these important Inca sites now have got churches on top of them. Like, we just keep putting these buildings on top of the energy spots. It's
interesting, right? It makes you think. Maybe the reptilian overlords know something that we don't know.
Sure, and they know everything.
They know everything. So it's like, look at this. Truck drives over ancient Nazca lines in Peru. They're like, it's like you said, they bulldoze that other stuff. It's like they intentionally
Someone
destroy.
supposedly crashed a truck into one of the Easter Island Moai the other day. Like it was in the news. Like he demoed one of them, just like the brakes went out in this old truck, and he just like took it
Wow.
out.
So we were talking about having landing platforms, and you know whose structures have the same thing? They're just like towers, the Mayans. What if they weren't? What if they didn't die? The Incas, what the Incas sacrificed themselves to death, right?
No, no, the Incas were wiped out by the.
Who were the
Well, the
people that
culture
were?
was destroyed by the
Who were the
Greeks.
ones that did thousands and thousands? It was the Inca, no? What's that one
No,
movie, Apocalypto?
the Aztecs were the real
Aztecs, the
sacrifice hungry. I
Aztecs.
mean, the Mayans did sacrifices too.
That's that movie Apocalyptico, right? That's
I
the
haven't seen.
yeah. What?
No, I
You
haven't
haven't
seen.
seen that movie?
No.
Oh my God, that's a great movie, dude. You gotta check that out. But it's like, it's reinforcing the whole Old Testament. Some Gnostics believe that the Old Testament was the work of demons. And you had this God that wanted to sacrifice children, and it was just sacrifice, 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 and like this fun and game. And then the New Testament, it's like, oh hey, I'm happy. It's like they believe they ignored the Old Testament. They ignored it. They said that's from a demon, and the New Testament is what they regarded. And even they went as far as worshiping John the Baptist. They thought John the Baptist was the true Messiah. It's it's very interesting, history and religion, the way it all
I'm in.
plays out.
I'm much more inclined towards the Hindu and the Buddhist, which came from the Hindu way, because it's a way of life and an acceptance of life that really doesn't have much
It's
to
very
do
different.
with worshiping something, and it's a much more open, understanding, sort of gentle way of life. And that appeals to me much more. And honestly, when you're in a Buddhist country, the vibe is so different from other countries for me. Like it just, and
It's
maybe I'm
more of
imagining.
like finding that inner self, and like you said, being in touch with everything, sort of like a higher consciousness type of thing. And I have a friend of mine who she went and she was traveling back and forth to India, and she says that she's a yogi, and they she says the energy that there's there, the people are like, she would see this guy in the market who had no legs, and he was walking around with blocks on his hands, and he was like he was homeless and he had no legs, and he was like the happiest person in the world, smiling, and she would see him constantly, and he was just like so happy. She's like, why is this man so happy? He's homeless and he doesn't have any legs. But again, we come from this materialistic society. We've lost touch with nature. That's why with all this COVID-19 stuff going on,
You can change how you look at things too, because if this guy is looking at from like the Hindu reincarnation point of view, then he is racking up some serious points on this life. Like really. And if he's got everything like he wants, like people know him and they like him. He's homeless, he has no legs, but they know him. He's part of the community. I'm sure people feed him. Like they're probably happy to see him because he's happy. And it creates like a positive thing even in a negative situation. If that's how he's looking at it, he's probably fairly happy because yeah, that's like three cherries on a one-armed bandit or something. For the next life, he's going to be the Maharaj, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. But who knows, right? Like you look at
But
homeless
me,
people.
I probably would not.
Well,
I'd
that's the
probably
thing,
not
right?
be
So you
very
look at
happy.
homeless people here, and they're just so sad and just begging for money, panhandling, whatever. And
Isolated.
you see the difference, right? You see the difference, and with this whole thing going on, we've lost touch with nature. It's like, oh, the food supply is gonna be gone. We're not gonna be able to eat. And I told my fiance, I said, listen, there's no food, right? Let's say the food runs out. Let's say they put us on a quarantine. Well, guess what? I live in Florida. The government here pays you to go kill anacondas and boa constrictors in the Everglades.
I
Guess
told you,
what?
snake is good.
Snake. We'll cook some snake up. There's boar. There's rabbit. There's birds. There's duck. But people are so afraid. Oh, well, there's no food. There's food all over. There's food all everywhere. Go fish. Eat fish. It's like people we talk about ancient civilizations, and it fascinates me, and I love it because back then, okay, aside from all the weirdness that these people, the knowledge that they knew, aside from all that, they're hunters and gatherers, right? And they lived from nature. Everything was nature back then. Everything was
Yep.
nature. And then obviously, we talked about the Incas. Who wiped the Incas out, right? When they came, the white man, right? The Europe or the Europeans, whatever you want to call it, came and they started getting infected, and they probably gave them COVID-19. Who knows? Gave them that, and they wiped them all out with disease and all this craziness, and they started breeding with the women, obviously probably sexually transmitted diseases.
We also, I mean, destroyed their moral culture as well. I mean, the Inca, like they had no concept of locks on doors. Like there was no theft like in their community. It was it was a different way of life to the old world.
It's just like the Indians, right? When Christopher Columbus came, and it's like, oh, we conquered this land. It's like this land wasn't yours to begin with, and this land's nobody's, right? This land is nature's, right?
It's one of the curse though of the human race in that so many times the cultures that come closer to understanding like a harmony and balance are wiped out by savage fucks who just have a lot of weapons and want to conquer everything.
Look at the cargo cults, right? Those cargo cults, like those people don't even know what's happening. Nope. And it's that I was looking at my son.
You mean like the guys on the islands that made like straw airplanes to try to get the airplanes to land with the military supplies again?
Yeah. And the other day I was looking at my son, and this is why I hate pedophiles, and I believe that I believe that what we should do right now, if the food runs out, we should chop. You had told me before, cannibalism. Chop them up and distribute the meat and eat them, because I was looking at my son.
You get some kind of horrible brain disease if you
probably, right? Probably. I was looking at my son the other day, and I was looking at him, and he was just so happy. He was reading. He was like holding a book. He was trying to read a book. And he was just so happy, and I'm just looking at him, and I go, man, he doesn't even know what's happening right now. Yeah. He doesn't even know what's going on in the world at this time, and at this moment in time. And it was just like that kind of sort of, right? I mean, there probably still was some evil in their own culture and people, and obviously they did human sacrifice, but aside from all that, it was like that. The other people came and conquered them, took that innocence away in a sense. How you said that they revolutionized their culture. No doors, then what? You have to make doors, people coming in, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that, and the way it changes, and that's why it's just like, somebody takes the innocence away from a child or something like that. That's the way I can see it. With that intention. It's like you have that intention when you first show up, and you don't know what's gonna happen. And can you imagine, like, these tribes back then, these people would trust the foreigners that come, and then they would stab them in the back and start killing them or invading them.
That's why when you see these stories in the news of like Christian moron murdered by tribe who did not want to be contacted. It's like he knew they didn't want to be contacted.
They probably ate him too.
He still wanted to go and tell them about Jesus and like risk their entire community by exposing them to all our diseases. And even though like the 2 times he went before and they shot at him with arrows, stuff, he was no, really, this time's going to be different. I totally respect. I feel on a spiritual level like I am on my balcony with poisoned arrows all the time. I wish I could just. I don't want to know anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like pushing your beliefs. That's my main problem with religion. It's just that where it gets political, and then you brought up an interesting point where they take these different sites and they build mosques and churches
churches and
on it,
cathedrals.
right? That's so
Yeah.
weird because
And
it is true. What if we can't? And that's why it blows my mind that we want to go to other planets and do what? What if on another planet we encounter some extraterrestrial disease that's way worse than COVID
oh yeah.
and it turns people into zombies?
Yeah, no, it was one of those. It might even have been Prometheus or something. But it's like you land on another planet, and it's just ridiculous. Like people taking their masks off to breathe in. It's like
Yeah.
you have no idea. There could be like anything that's in the air, any kind of bacteria here that we have no response to because
Well,
we've
that's what
never
they think it
experienced it.
is. That's what they think it was, and so Aliens Covenant was supposed to be a continuation of Prometheus. It was in the movie. It
Right.
was like, oh, from the failed mission of Prometheus, the Covenant, which was the new ship, was gonna go explore this other planet. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Aliens. I'm not big into little green men. I'm more into like the interdimensional alien type. I like that sort of alien, like the one that interdimensional being, entity, whatever. I'm not, the grays and stuff like that. That doesn't really interest me all that much, to be quite honest. But the Alien franchise, I'm not a big fan of. But when I saw that it was going to be related to it,
The
I
first movie is just an absolute classic, though. I mean, there was
yeah.
nothing
But
else
after that,
like it.
Luke, it's the same shit over and over and
Yeah,
over again,
yeah, no,
right?
absolutely. But the first movie is
It's like Predator. Oh, what's he gonna do? Oh, he's gonna kill everybody. That's what it is. And so I watched it thinking that it was gonna be more related towards the architects, and it was the same director, and I was like, oh, this is great because I really enjoyed Prometheus, and it wasn't. It was the
a
aliens
lot
and
of
stuff.
yeah, a lot of people hated Prometheus because they were wanting like.
The aliens, the regular ones, the xenomorphs.
Yeah, they were wanting that
Yeah,
stuff.
that's stupid. I don't like that. But
I was
it,
interested in the story. I do think somebody should have told Charlize Theron how not to run in a straight line away from a rolling wheel. But yeah, no,
but
it wasn't a bad movie. I didn't think it was as horrible as. I mean, it's just like any other movie in that there's a series of completely unbelievable things, and not even like the space travel and whatever, but where, um, you know, the character has to sort of give herself the alien abortion
yeah,
in the machine, and then like carry on, like running and jumping and hanging on to stuff, and like one time she like winces a little bit, and I'm like, there's just, there's no way, but
yeah,
you know.
and the ending. Have you seen Covenant?
That's the one where they land on another planet and they all get sick from spores and whatnot, right?
Yeah, you saw
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one, right?
I did see that. Yeah.
So at the ending of that movie, and this is the part that I like the most, because obviously we talk. I think I've talked to you about the singularity. We reached this point where we invented cyborgs, right? Because David and the other guy, I forgot what they named the other cyborg. He obviously there was a fight, right, between the two, and one of them wanted to what, like genetically modify the humans. He was like worshiping these aliens, and he was doing
Right.
all these experiments with them. And I was like, and then what did he do? He wiped out that civilization there on that planet when he pulled up with the ship. So I was like, what if at the end of the day, AI, like Terminator or whatever, instead of blowing us up, just tries to makes another COVID-19 type thing that just completely wipes out humanity and just transforms it into what they think is an ideal species, and a eugenics type thing,
Well,
right?
there's these plants that do that to ants, right?
Yeah, yeah, the
They have
parasites,
this
right?
yeah, they have this kind of
Or
uh,
the fish that takes the
fungus
tongue of the.
pollen that the plant emits that makes the ants do stuff for the plant and then commit suicide on the plant. It's really, really weird.
I think there's bees too. There's a one for bees. There's one for fish where it takes the tongue of the fish. It replaces the tongue of the fish and it does some crazy stuff to the fish, and like I think controls them too. But that's wild, right? It's like, and I think that's a sort of fungus. No, it's a sort of fungi.
Probably, yeah.
Probably, right? Because we talked obviously psilocybin and stuff, and I've showed you my little experiments, and it's
Right.
like this living thing. And even when your experiences with ayahuasca and the shamans, how they tell you, it's like, who told you? Well, the plants told us. And like maybe we are a plant experiment, and we just were invented to move things around for them.
We're like sea monkeys. We're alien sea monkeys. Do you know about sea monkeys?
Oh
Like,
yes, I'm familiar with sea
yeah,
monkeys.
I'm a child of the '70s, and those were like the rage, like in the late '70s for some what the I don't even remember what
A
they
weird
are.
alien thing. They are.
Kind of freeze dried something, and you add water in it, like they come to life, like little.
Well, I know about them because I have fish,
Right.
so I've fed them to them. They're called brine shrimp. There we go. They're
Yeah.
a type of shrimp, brine shrimp. They look very odd, and it's crazy because right now I have some eggs in my fridge, and it's crazy how these things, you just literally add water, aerate it, and it just comes to life.
Yeah.
It's alien. It's an alien. If you look at it, it's like, and they get very big too. You can raise them and feed them to fish, and they get very big, and they mature in a couple of days. It's like the movie Alien, right? In a couple of minutes, it's just coming out of the guy's body, and it just grows into this bigger thing. And there's so much weird stuff on this planet that we don't even understand. But yeah, we want to go
And
and
this
cultivate.
is why modern medicine and science is really good in a lot of ways. Because a few hundred years ago, people really had parasites and you know and no teeth and wooden teeth and it's good that it's not all tinfoil shit, but we need to understand that like science also has no sense of morality.
No, and neither does nature. Neither does nature, right? And I talk about this all the time. And adding to what we've talked about, we if there was no humans, there wouldn't be. First of all, animals don't care about borders. I was watching this video the other day of a badger eating a snake,
Mm.
and
Badgers are badass.
badass. And it's like, wow, that's really wild. Like he kept going. I think there's a species of animal, I don't know if it's a badger, where it gets high. I think it dies while it's fighting like cobras. It like dies for a second or something, or like gets in this state of where it's just like knocked out, and then out of nowhere it just snaps out of it, because obviously the venom from the snake. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's badgers or what animal. I have to look it up. But they literally get knocked out, and then like a
But
couple hours later just wakes up.
the Wolverine power of regeneration.
Yeah. So Luke, to wrap up, and I know we've talked about a lot of different things today. Do you have any
Yeah.
final thoughts to summarize what we've talked about?
No, not really. But we keep threatening to talk about South America, um,
Yeah,
and we
we
keep we keep like getting
because
away.
it's so much. So what I'm gonna do, Luke, what I'm gonna
But we'll
do,
get there one.
well, I don't know if you what you're looking like, what your schedule's looking like. I'll come up with a timeline or something, and I'll text you. I'll shoot you some messages and be like, hey, we'll follow this timeline hopefully, because every time I talk to you, I learn so much from you,
Hey,
and
that's
that's
not a
why
bad idea.
I like talking to you, having these conversations. I learn, and it just fascinates me, right? Like how these people were back then. And obviously you have the official narrative if you want to believe that, and then you have the what the evidence points to, like what Brian talks about. The evidence points to this, but they're saying that, and then when you try and change that, they combat it with something else. And at the end of the day, maybe we won't ever know. We won't
No.
ever know. What if, just like in the movie Prometheus, what if we were to find out where we came from? And I don't think the people on Earth ever did find out, because they all died.
Yeah, we should talk about some of the that stuff too, like the moon, because the moon is a super weird situation. The moon, I think, is maybe uh, like half a billion years older than the Earth, which is kind of odd.
Well, there is cultures that remember the moon not being there,
Right.
Luke.
And
That's why they
it
say it's
has
fake.
it would be very difficult for us to capture it in that exact position, and it's the only moon really of that size, and,
Yes, relative
and
to the
the
size of
fact
the
that it's
planet.
perfectly positioned to
And we're locked, face
give
locked
like a
too,
yeah, we're
with it.
face locked. We're actually orbiting each other, and the fact that yeah, it's the just the perfect size and position to give us a full eclipse. It's really weird. Like without the moon, none of this would be possible. So it's a very interesting thing to look into, and the fact it seems to be hollow.
Yeah. They also say that it's hollow. And I've been meaning to do an episode on that too, Hollow Moon, which is very interesting. And then obviously the fake moon landings, if you want to talk about that too. Like they say that we didn't land on the moon, but who knows? Because it's again, there's things that I can't prove that we can't none of us can prove, right? There's the law of thermodynamics and all these different laws. Is there a law of gravity? Is that even a thing? I want to make that shit up.
It's a
But
theory.
yeah, because exactly. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she asked me, we're talking about religion, and she asked me, how can people believe in something they don't see? And I was like, well, that's called faith, right? Faith is such a powerful thing because we know gravity is there, we know what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these people will tell you that, they feel that connection, whatever it may be, if it is real or not. But it's real to them. And some people say they've seen God and he speaks to them. But then you have how much for a long time in the world were a lot of these religions schizophrenia. There's that. And again, it could be so many things. And then obviously that does offend people when you talk about those things. But it's just something that's there, and how Aristotle says it's the mark of a dedicated man to hear a thought without accepting it.
Yeah, just to be able to think about it for a while.
But yeah, no, we'll eventually get to it, and yeah, look, I love these conversations, and we'll plan for South America one.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
you just shoot me the ones that, or actually I'll look through. Do you have any South American videos?
I think I just have Sewate up at the moment, which is an interesting site. I've been meaning to do more, but I was hoping to go back in May and get some more footage. Um, but we'll just have to see what's going on with
Yeah, it's affected
the
everybody, but
COVID-19.
we'll figure it out, and then just shoot me the places that you like the most or something
Yeah, I can do
that
that.
you find the most interesting, and then I'll research them and I'll be able to tag along with you, because then that's why I ask you, where are we, Luke? Where
Yeah, no,
well,
I want to talk a bit about like the Hanan Pacha stuff, and a guy called Jesus Gamara, and some of the really interesting theories, and we can talk about 5 or 6 of the most interesting sites there and some of that stuff.
yeah,
I don't
we'll
know.
plan it. I mean, I'm relatively open this week, so if you want, we can do it sometime this week, and
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
go from there.
I'm I'm sort of self-isolated, more or less. Occasional store run, that's about it. So I'm around too. Just working on more editing.
Right on, Luke. Well, where can people find your stuff, Luke? I didn't ask you. I'll plug it in at the
Sure.
beginning.
And www.enigmasoftheancient.world. And if you go there, you can actually find a link on the media page to my Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube sites. I got a bunch of videos on various places around the world, ancient sites. I occasionally take tours. We got one in October, COVID-19 willing.
Hopefully, right?
Yep. So yeah, just you can check that stuff out through my website, enigmasoftheancient.world.
Once again, it's always a pleasure, Luke. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, Juan. I really enjoy our conversations.
There it is, another episode of the Juan on Juan podcast. Make sure to check out Luke's work on YouTube, Enigmas of the Ancient World, also on Instagram. Also, make sure to follow us on social media, Instagram in particular, at the Juan on Juan podcast. My website is thejuanonjuanpodcast.com. And guess what my email is? thejuanonjuanpodcast@gmail.com. Shoot me an email if you want to be on the show, have anything interesting to talk about. Shoot us a rating. Hopefully 5 stars. If you don't, that's fine. But you're a piece of shit. But still rate us. Whatever. I don't care. Spread the word about the show. And once again, thank you for the support. And until next time.